So I kind of walked in on an A&D counselor, alcohol and drugs counselor, talking about how, addicts, like you have to be willing to do what it takes, and it's a common phrase. And I was like, okay, so when I look at addicts, and a lot of them, maybe orphaned, abandoned by the people who were supposed to be genetically inclined to love, understand, have compassion like no one else in the world ever will. Like, I don't care how cool your boss is or your teachers or whatever. And their brains are, affected by alcohol and drugs, and they're all twisted up and stuff. And so it's a lot easier for me to understand why they're using drugs and alcohol than it is for me to see a society that won't help those kinds of people. They always, court systems and the A&D treatment facilities and stuff, like their excuses are, we don't have the resources or whatever, they can't pay enough for people to want to do the jobs and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, society has to be willing to do what it takes. Like there's responsibility on both sides, of course, the counselor actually conceded a little bit and was like, yeah, I actually agree. He's from a church that tries to assist people or whatever. He actually even says, like, he thinks that the most judgmental people are Christians, and they have their stigmas, and they aren't willing to understand and stuff. Well, then I'm talking about the treatment facilities not like inspiring people and not motivating people, and the 2% success rates and stuff, and so you're being judged by your works, as they say in the Bible, your results and stuff. And he's like, well, I choose to focus on, our success stories, like so-and-so, I forget who he said or whatever, this guy moved down to some other state, got a job, started a family, all of that. And I was like, okay, no, I get it. You should. I'm not saying you shouldn't celebrate your successes at all. I'm not just focusing on the bad, and I acknowledge that that they do have some success. They do impact that 2% of people in a really, really positive way. But it's like addiction, if an addict focuses only on the negative, like, hey, my life is still not together, I'm still in a shitty spot, and I can't make my way out of this hole. If they're just focusing on the negative, they're gonna relapse. So they got to celebrate their little successes along the way, and they'll get bigger and bigger and higher and higher, all of that. But like addiction, if someone's only focusing on the positives, they're only focusing on, like, hey, drugs make me feel better, I'm not as angry, I'm not having as many bad thoughts, if they're only focusing on that negative and they're not looking at the whole picture and all the shit that drugs and alcohol are causing, that their behavior is causing, then it's not gonna click. They're gonna hit stumbling blocks, they're gonna trip, they're gonna fall, they're gonna relapse. So I would liken that to treatment facilities that only focus on the positive. And he's like, well, we can't take responsibility, we can't take that on. And I'm like, well, you just said that society has a responsibility, and he agreed with that. but now he's backpedaling and saying, no, they don't have a responsibility. So I said that I think that religion, Jesus Christ himself, that Messiah figure, and treatment facilities are like a really bad basketball coach. So if a basketball coach has cop-outs like I can't make them do what they don't want to do, like treatment facilities, or religion, like every has a choice, and they go around and they're like telling their players like, hey, yeah, you point your the fundamentals, like you point your rim, you point your elbow at the rim, you release up top like a kid reaching for a cookie in the cookie jar. He draws up some plays, some drills, and he sits in his office and then tells them to go practice on their own, and the teams keep failing. The players keep failing. Team after team, all these people are playing for him, and he's failing over and over. He's going to lose his job if he doesn't realize. He's like telling himself like, oh, I can't make them do what they don't want to do, or they had a choice, but he doesn't realize it's his responsibility as a coach to inspire his players to want to get better and better. And if they're not seeing improvement, maybe some players might be, but across the board, other players aren't improving or anything, then the coach is going to be out of a job. He ended up saying that he thinks addiction is different than coaching basketball. So, I can't I can't win every battle every time, but I'm still going forward. Thanks.